Welcome back, Focus Learners. Today we're diving straight into a concept that is, quite literally, mind-bending. We're talking about a single mathematical proof that completely shattered our understanding of knowledge, of logic, and even of the very devices you're using to watch this explainer right now. I want you to imagine something for a second. Picture a perfect book, a master text containing every single mathematical truth in the entire universe. Absolutely everything. Every proof, every formula, every answer, flawlessly recorded with zero contradictions. Sounds like the ultimate scientific dream, right? But contrast that perfect, closed book with a dark, infinite labyrinth of formulas. Because in the 20th century, one man mathematically proved that this perfect book simply cannot exist. He proved that no matter how advanced our logic gets, there will always be truths out there that are totally impossible to prove. And honestly, that changes everything. Section 1. The Mathematician's Dream. So let's rewind to the year 1900. A legendary mathematician named David Hilbert launched a grand program. His massive goal? To build an absolute perfect foundation of mathematical logic. A system where every single true statement could be mechanically proven without a shadow of a doubt and where absolutely zero contradictions existed. It was basically the pursuit of complete mathematical certainty. And by 1928, a lot of experts actually believed this completely decidable mathematics was right around the corner. Section 2. The Rules of the Game. Now, to understand how this dream fell apart, we first need to look at what they were building. Mathematicians relied on something called a formal system. At its core, a formal system is just a set of axioms, which are basically your starting assumptions, equipped with highly mechanical rules of inference. You use these strict rules to generate new, proven theorems. The idea was to design something perfectly objective, a system where a mathematical proof could be mechanically verified without any human bias or messy interpretation getting in the way. Think of it exactly like a game of chess. You have the pieces, right? Those are your axioms. You have the valid moves, which are your strict rules of logic. And you have the game itself, representing the mechanical process of mathematical proof. The dream was that if you just set up the board perfectly and played by the rules long enough, you could literally play out every single mathematical truth in existence. Section 3. Gödel shatters the illusion. Enter Kurt Gödel. In 1931, this 24-year-old genius published a paper that just dropped an absolute bombshell on the scientific community. Despite his youth, Gödel managed to prove that any sufficiently powerful logical system has fundamental, unfixable limits. Just like that, the perfect game of chess was broken. How did he do it? Well, he figured out a brilliant way to make mathematics talk about itself. By translating logical formulas into unique prime numbers, he essentially created a mathematical equation that functions exactly like the English sentence, "This statement is unprovable." It's a wild concept that basically turns math into a mirror. Let's walk through this mind-bending paradox because it's a genius trap. Think about it. If the mathematical system can somehow prove the statement, well, then the statement is inherently false. And a math system that proves false things, that's broken. But if the system cannot prove the statement, then the statement is mathematically true. So what does that mean? It means true statements exist that the mathematical system simply cannot prove. Math was brilliantly used against itself. Now, a quick caveat just to be precise. This doesn't break all math. Basic systems like simple Euclidean geometry or real closed fields are actually complete. They're simple enough to escape the trap. But Gödel's first incompleteness theorem strictly applies to anything complex enough to handle basic arithmetic or Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory. And guess what? That happens to be the very foundation we rely on to do almost all ordinary mathematics. And Gödel didn't stop there. He delivered a second blow. His second incompleteness theorem proved that a sufficiently complex system literally cannot prove its own consistency. If you want to prove that your mathematical foundation is completely sound and contradiction-free, you have to step completely outside of that system to do it. Mathematics simply cannot validate itself from within. Section 4. AI and the uncomputable. Gödel's revelation that formal systems have these hard limits completely changed the trajectory of the 20th century. In fact, it directly inspired Alan Turing to define computability. Turing realized that if there are unprovable mathematical statements, there must be problems that no computer algorithm can ever solve. You might know this as the famous halting problem. This single realization spawned modern computer science, cryptography, and laid the absolute foundation of artificial intelligence. We can actually anchor this historical math right to the bleeding edge of today's tech. Take the 2025 monograph, Artificial Intelligence in Science, as a prime example. It's a deep dive into how machine learning and AI are driving modern research. But here's the catch. The theoretical boundaries that define what artificial intelligence can and cannot logically compute, they are rooted straight in Gödel's proofs. The limits of AI are, fundamentally, the limits of formal mathematical systems. This actually brings us to a massive, ongoing philosophical debate about us versus AI. On one side, you have the mechanist view. This argues that the human mind basically operates like a highly complex machine, meaning we're just as bound by Gödel's limits as any AI is. But on the other side, the anti-mechanist view, championed by thinkers like J.R. Lucas and Roger Penrose, argues that human intuition can actually see truths that machines cannot, meaning the human mind will always infinitely surpass a finite machine or formal system. Interestingly, Gödel himself leaned toward human reason being superior, though he did admit his theorem alone couldn't completely settle the debate. Section 5. The infinite labyrinths. So, what's the big takeaway here? Ultimately, Gödel didn't break math. He didn't destroy logic. What he did was show us that knowledge isn't a closed, finite book that we'll just finish reading one day. Instead, knowledge is an endless, infinite labyrinth of doors. Every time we build a system to understand the universe, we're going to find truths that require us to step outside that system and open an entire new door. And honestly, this is the core of scientific discovery. We will never know absolutely everything. There is no final equation that perfectly proves itself. But you know what? That limitation isn't a failure. It's exactly what keeps science, mathematics, and discovery alive. The infinity of the unknown is what makes the search so incredibly beautiful. I want to end this explainer with a provocative thought to leave you pondering that infinite labyrinths. As we build increasingly powerful AI that operates perfectly within the strict, formal boundaries Gödel defined, will the human mind always transcend the machines we build? Or are we too just formal systems waiting to find our own unprovable truths? If you love exploring the absolute edges of mathematics, logic, and reality, make sure to subscribe to The Universe's Code. We're going to keep making the most complex ideas in the universe clear, structured, and accessible. Thanks for exploring the labyrinth with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.